Okay, honest admission, I had a little high aspirations, and we're not going to get this done in one video. It's going to take two. But you have 2 days worth of notes to get done, so, well, this is day two. So we left off kind of the intro of the Portuguese Empire. So we're going to kind of start with a map. If you notice, Portugal is this tiny little spot right here, and their empire goes all over the place, all over the globe. So by the height of period 4, Portugal is really the largest maritime empire, and there's going to be a phrase, we're going to talk about that in the notes today. So Portugal, or Portugal, Portugal gets its name from Portiscale, which was a kind of Celtic big trading spot that had happened kind of earlier in the Classic period. Portugal as a country was established during the Christian Reconquista against the Moors. Remember that from Spain. We're going to get into a little more detail about that coming up. But remember, the Moors were part of the Umayyad dynasty that had invaded the Iberian Peninsula in the 700s. So in the 15th and 16th centuries, Portugal is going to establish the first kind of global empire, becoming one of the world's most economic, political, and military powers at the time. During this period that we call the Age of Discovery, Portuguese explorers pioneered military exploration and created what's called a thalassocracy, meaning a sea power. That's just an interesting term. Make you sound really smart if you use it. I had to look it up, I'll be honest. But notably, it's under the patronage of Prince Henry the Navigator, that such notable voyages as Bartholomew Diaz's sailing around the Cape of Good Hope in 1488, Vasco da Gama's discovery of sea route to India about 10 years after that, and the European discovery of Brazil in 1500. So within like a 20 roughly year period, Portugal is really going to make some pretty impressive discoveries. In the early 1500s, the Portuguese admiral Alfonso de Albuquerque is going to attack and then win that attack against the Indian port of Goa. I think it's called Goa. He makes that the capital of the Portuguese Vice Kingdom of Asia, and other Portuguese possessions in India, Malacca, and other bases in Indonesia, Timor, the Persian Gulf, Macau, and China, even trade bases in Japan are going to be underneath the kind of authority of this viceroy in Goa. By the mid-1500s, the area under occupation had expanded to most of kind of what becomes present-day limits. Francis Xavier was a Christian missionary who led an extensive mission into Asia. If you look around, there's a lot of Catholic churches named St. Francis Xavier and things like that. But he's going to mainly be in the Portuguese Empire and spends most of his time in India. There is a famous kind of institution or inquisition that gets proposed by him. He's the first Christian missionary to venture into Japan and Borneo and a few other areas, but he struggled to learn the local languages in those areas and faced a lot of pushback. So he tended to kind of not find the success that he had found in India. He was about to extend his preaching to China when he died, I believe, of a disease in one of the islands there. So there's a crash course that applies here with the mariners. And there's actually, if you're curious of learning more about Portugal and Prince Henry the Navigator, there is a kind of video about him as well. So the Spanish Empire. No nation becomes more like tied to the idea of early exploration than Spain. Not only are they the ones who, quote unquote, found the New World, but they do set up long-term colonies that impact even today. Their rule of that kind of New World colony often comes with a lot of negative connotations. Hello, slave trade. Hello, encomienda system. But let's face it, nobody shapes Latin America more than Spain. So we will talk a little bit about how Spain becomes this empire. All right, so the red areas are kind of Spanish colonies. As you can tell, just like the Portuguese, their colonial system is much bigger than their own home empire. So we talked a little bit about a lot of this. So a lot of this is going to be just a quick review. So make note, because we brought it up twice, particularly the Casta system. So Ferdinand and Isabella, Castile and Aragon, the two kind of principalities, it is generally accepted by most scholars that the unification of Spain can essentially be traced to their marriage. And their reign is very much characterized by a religious unification of the peninsula through militant Catholicism. They are going to petition the Pope for the authority to do so. He's going to give it to them. And they are essentially going to run off anybody who's not Catholic. If the people who converted to Catholicism are not subject to being run off. However, in the late 1400s, hundreds of those who had converted are accused of secretly practicing their original religions. They're arrested, they're imprisoned, they're interrogated under torture, and we have what we call the Inquisition, the witch hunts. And this is the area where some people get burned to death. After they've done this during the age of exploration, they are going to fund many maritime explorations. The Italian mariner Christopher Columbus is going to receive his financing to claim lands for Spain. And legend has it that he convinced them that the big reason is to spread religion, when we all know he wants to get rich. We use the term conquistador to refer to the soldiers and explorers of the Spanish Empire, or sometimes the Portuguese Empire, in a general sense. During this time period, this period 4, conquistadors are going to sail to the Americas, Oceania, Africa, Asia, and they're going to conquer a lot of territories and open up trade routes. For the Spanish end of things, they're often going to create a viceroyalty, which is really kind of a governorship. It's an imperial provincial administration system. Many of these are also going to include an encomienda, which is a Spanish labor system. This is the idea that conquerors get rewarded for taking over an area by getting the people who live there as free labor. This happens a lot during the Spanish colonization of the Americas and the Philippines, and conquered peoples are considered vassals of the Spanish monarchy. An encomienda would be given to a particular person. The casta system, guys, that's that social structure that we talked about. The peninsulare is the person who's born in Spain on the peninsula. The Creole is a European born in the Americas. Mestizo, meaning mixed, European and native ancestry, and then mulatto, being mixed with African ancestry. The Columbian Exchange, we've spent a lot of time on the Columbian Exchange. This here is really just a reminder to keep track of it, to watch for it. So to finish things off, you've got a crash course video on the Spanish Empire. I'm hoping you all have enough time to be able to do a couple of crash courses in class when you finish the notes. Be a good time to use your time frame. And it wouldn't hurt to come back to these and watch a few of them as well, just to kind of help clarify your understanding.